Let's kick it.
This is Stephanie Michele from Relatable on LA Talk Radio, and I am kicking it with Doree.
Hello, and welcome to the Kicking It with Doree podcast. This is Doree Allen Nieves, your host. Today on the show, we're talking to Stephanie Michele. Stephanie Michele is a certified behavioral analyst, consumer retention specialist, certified NLP practitioner, and founder of No Text or Next. Stephanie promotes improving relationship skills as a means for an advanced quality of life. She speaks on the importance of practicing communication exercises and the juxtaposition of mainstream device, media, and app-addicted society, and promotes the value of maintaining long-term relationships. She uses creative and sometimes provocative methods to increase integrity, sincerity, transparency, and trust building on both individual and cultural levels. Stephanie is a practical optimist and relational futurist who believes new relating norms are negatively impacting our present and future relationships. She promotes an exploration of grace, empathy, and curiosity as means to course-correct ineffective relational habits while increasing experiences of meaningful connection. In 2009, Stephanie started her company, Social Bling, to provide clients with data-driven marketing services that embody her relational principles. Stephanie lives in Los Angeles, California with her beloved dog, Mr. Deeds. You can listen to Stephanie's show, Relatable, on LA Talk Radio Live, Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, or see show archives on YouTube or iTunes. And now I'd like to welcome to the show, Miss Stephanie Michele. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Hi, Doree. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay. I'm so glad that you're here too, all the way from LA. And I just really excited to talk about this topic today because we are in an age where everything moves so fast and people rely on technology so much that they forget that they are talking to other people. And it creates a lot of dysfunction in different kinds of relationships, whether we're talking about business, work, your personal life. And so I think that this is going to be a show that's really going to resonate with everyone that hears it, because everyone that has ever used a cell phone or ever used email or ever used social media will be able to understand what we're getting at and hopefully be inspired to be able to adjust some of their habits or thoughts about relating well.
Absolutely. And, and to be clear, it's like, I'm not anti-technology. I'm just aware of what it's doing to us. And all we can do is kind of stop and take a pause and make some adjustments so we feel better about the relating that we're doing. Because ultimately, we are hardwired for connection. And when we're doing things that we are putting more focus and attention on consuming news or consuming products instead of being with each other, that actually causes quite a bit of pain and anxiety in your body to not connection or eye contact or physical touch.
Yes, absolutely. It does cause a lot of anxiety and miscommunication, dysfunction. There's so many people that, get their feelings hurt or they get turned off by people because they have mismanaged their communication efforts. And I agree with Stephanie. We're not bashing technology. It makes our lives much easier, but we don't want to try to make shortcuts into our business and personal relationships. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely, what we're going to talk about.
You just mentioned about anxiety, and anxiety has become the number one mental health issue that we have in North America. Everybody gets anxiety, of course, to some certain point in certain situations, but there's some people that live with it all the time. And there's a big role that social media plays in this anxiety. And I mean, I'm even thinking about something like sending a text message and staring at it to see if, you got an answer back and, it's been 5 minutes and they didn't answer. What do they do? Stuff like that. So talk to us a little bit about this anxiety with social media and technology.
Sure. So I have to comment on what you just said. So I don't even call my phone a phone anymore. I call it an OAD, which stands for Outcome Addiction Device, because I'm basically doing exactly what you just described. I'm waiting for that text to come in, and I have very little understanding or empathy towards the situation that the person is in that I'm waiting for that text from. I'm just waiting for the text, wanting a certain response. So I'm susceptible to this too, and it's why I wanted to be a voice in this space, because I'm experiencing it too. And if, I'm nothing special, if I can change and do things to, to feel better about my relating. I know that I can encourage and help other people do the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, they're talking now that 1 in 3 Americans are experiencing some sort of social anxiety. A lot of it is caused by the rate of information that's coming at us, and then the addiction to the device, like you just described. And then there's this whole new thing in the world and in the mix that, we're being told everything's normal. It's business is normal. It's government is normal. Our healthcare system, we shouldn't be too worried about the changes that they've made in the last 2 days. But it doesn't feel like it's normal. And it's about the worst thing that you can do for yourself to ignore something that doesn't feel okay. So it could manifest in just pain in your body. Like I carry tension in my shoulders and neck. It could be that you're not sleeping very well. It could be that, you're leaning into substance abuse or, deciding to Netflix all night instead of taking the time to connect with a friend. Or it could be that you're just abnormally triggered by something somebody says, and then you blow up and, like you were mentioning earlier, kind of have this short fuse, and then, you regret it later and don't know what to do. So all of these things are in the mix. And the best thing to do is go, okay, it's there, be honest about it. Like, feel what your body's telling you, feel what your heart's telling you. Like, hey, this communication is not okay. Or I haven't been touched or talked to, or I haven't had any eye contact and I'm feeling isolated. Like, that's not okay. Like, what do we need? What can you do to feel better? And some of it's a little scary. So when we admit that there's something wrong, then, the next step is kind of reaching out to someone and saying, hey, I actually do need to talk to you. And I don't want to do this conversation via text. Can we schedule a time to have coffee? Like, in that ask, there is opportunity for rejection, and that feels scary for some people. But I guarantee getting in the practice of that and being able to sit across from somebody and talk to them again and feel connection, it far outweighs that little bit of discomfort in the beginning.
Yep. That's the thing. Like, we're a bunch of people that have become really socially awkward because of
Totally.
because of all of this stuff that's going on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that show. There's a show on HBO now with Issa Rae that's called Insecure. And, she talks about all these various different situations where she's interacting with people. And, she, is coming from a web show called The Awkward Black Girl. And it's like, there's a lot of situations that make us feel awkward that maybe are natural at first, but then there's some things that, as you said, are abnormally or that may, trigger things that are not right. And so that's really good that we start to point that out and recognize those things and not just fall into this loop where we're just always, like you said, reverting to Netflix or always texting someone. I remember the days when I've been married just about a year now. A couple of days, it'll be a year. And before that, I was dating for about 12 years. And so I used to hate, the text situation because I always used to complain that, these men, they don't want to talk to you. They just want to text your the whole conversation and a whole relationship all the time. And they think, well, I'm in touch with you. I'm checking in with you and whatever. But you're not spending any time with me. I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. Like, this is not dating. So that used to always annoy me so much. And that's part of this little epidemic we're talking about.
Absolutely. So I have a couple solutions and, thoughts around that. One is I'm dating now. So, I feel you on that 12 years. I'm experiencing that. I really have a distaste in my mouth for, the start of a relationship through an online dating tool. It's just a mess. They treat it like the wild, wild west. People are saying things that they shouldn't say. And it's just really, it doesn't seem to transition very well into a normal relationship or normal communication. And so, there's a couple things that I've learned in my own practices. Number one is, set some standards, like some guidelines, some personal guidelines around this communication, and find a way to communicate those standards before it's a blow up situation, before you're totally, pissed off and angry, say it early. So, one of my things is like, look, if I'm going to meet somebody on a dating app, I'm going to say very soon in the conversation, and I'll say it playful, so I'm still fun and, being flirty and, so there's some interest, but I'm like, hey, I'm much better on the phone. I don't text well, like, can we get to the phone situation or can we make a plan? And honestly, the ones that say no or don't respond, I don't want them hanging around anyways. Like, they're not
Yeah.
going to meet my standards in communication. So I'm like, I just want to get through it. Like, I don't want to waste anybody's time or be on their list of options because I'm not an option. I am somebody, I'm not going to be your option. I'm either going to be your
You're the
somebody,
one.
but I'm
That's
not going to be your option, right? So I get through that faster. So then I'm not letting somebody tie me up in the like, well, hopefully they'll get a clue and call me back or text me or whatever it is. I don't do that. And, my results are better because of that. And so I did put that out there. I have a brand called No Text or Next that has these guidelines, especially around dating, of like just setting some standards around that type of communication and just letting somebody know that's really not okay in a fun, playful way. Setting your standards in a fun, playful way as soon as you can up front is a great thing to do.
Yep. What are some of the other ways that you see people typically using, social media or texting or whatever to try to shortcut their way into or through a relationship?
Yes, so many things. I mean, so many things. People will use text, and nobody's at fault here. Okay, I don't want to poo-poo anyone that really likes text. Like, this is my tool, this is my jam. I don't want to do that, but it's more of text has been an acceptable means of communication for everything and anything. Like, I was on another show a couple weeks ago, and a gentleman was telling me that his aunt sent a text to everybody in his family that his uncle died, and he was just mortified by that. Like, that's such an impactful moment that seems like you should pick up the phone and kind of communicate to somebody that, this person has just passed. So that, that wasn't okay. So I think it's being used for everything. I've exchanged business cards at a networking event and had people immediately text. And, I just look at it as an opportunity to go, great, I get to communicate my standards now. And one of my standards around business is I don't do business via text. I will do business via email, or I'll set up an appointment to either meet or talk to you. But I don't do business via text. I don't let my clients text me. I communicate that before it's a problem, before it's abusive. And I think that that's the responsibility that we all have if we want better communication. And if this thing bothers us, you just have to find a way to communicate what that standard is to you.
I think it's really good to do that up front. I like that. I notice people doing a lot of like, I'm going to take a picture of the business card so that I can like funnel it right into my LinkedIn or my social media or whatever. But I still think that people aren't using the proper etiquette when it comes to connecting with someone that you really don't know on social media. You met them at an event, you met them at a party, whatever. And then like you just like try to shove something in their face. Well, basically it's like, I just met you 3 minutes ago. Okay, well, can you hire me? Can I get a job? Can I, buy my stuff? And it's like, wait a minute, that's not, what's that?
Yeah. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is when I exchange business cards with someone, then I automatically end up on their email list. And,
Oh, no.
and I'm a marketer too. So I'm like, first of all, you put me on there and you didn't ask for my permission. And second of all, like, if your messages are not tailored to my specific needs, and how can they be? Because you don't know me, you just added it without, getting to know me and what I might be interested in. I'm never going to read that email, and I'm going to unsubscribe pretty quickly because I'm a busy person. I don't have time to like go through a ton of those emails in my inbox. It's kind of rude. It's like a neighbor knocking on your door, at 11 o'clock at night. It's a little intrusive, and I think it needs to stop. It's
Yeah.
definitely one of my biggest pet peeves in business communication for sure. Don't add me to your list until you actually know that I might be interested, or ask me. In that exchange, why not just ask, hey, is it okay to add you to my list? This is what I do. This is what I communicate through it. And then I might say yes if, I'm interested in that. And if I don't, here's the other thing about communication. It's kind of like being naked. You don't get more naked after that first awkward moment. So if there's going to be a rejection, there's no such thing, right? You can't get more naked. You're just naked. It's this fear around awkwardness or vulnerability, when true vulnerability is absolutely a strength. Like, people that really, are okay with like leading with a little discomfort, like, they're heroes. They're doing amazing things. They're excellent communicators. Like, people stand back and watch that and go, that was amazing. I can't believe you said something that you knew other people would be in disagreement or maybe reject you over. Like, that takes real courage and strength. So we need to stop looking at awkwardness and vulnerability as something that can hurt us, when really the more we practice it, the more strong and courageous we become.
Absolutely. I think vulnerability is wonderful. That's really how, you connect with people in a relationship, but it has to be, like you said, at the appropriate time. It cannot be like the first night that I've met you or whatever, or the first time that we've exchanged cards and, I'm trying to make sure I remember your name type deal. Like that has to evolve at the appropriate social level.
Absolutely. There's a sequence and an appropriate situation to everything. And when in doubt, ask questions before, giving too much communication out, and when in doubt, always ask questions. Be curious about somebody. And then you start to learn, okay, what's acceptable to this person? And then if you really want to know, like, what makes a person tick, or, when you can be more vulnerable, ask why questions, in particularly, because when someone answers a why question, like, why do you do what you do? Not what do you do, but why do you do what you do? They reveal to you their values and beliefs. And then you have something. Then you have an understanding of who that person really is.
And I want to throw in real fast before we move on to the next thing. Please don't spam people onto your Facebook groups either. Don't do that. Ask permission, just like she was talking about with the email situation. Don't think, oh, we're friends on Facebook, and so that means I'm just going to add, you to my group, or I'm just going to spam you with all my events, and we like live 2,000-3,000 miles apart. Be intentional with your communications with people that you don't know, and it's okay to stay in touch and to build gradually, just like you would in person. Don't be afraid that, you won't get the business or you won't be able to really get in with your influencer. Just be yourself, be of value, provide service, don't be annoying. These are just some basic things that you would do with anybody. You wouldn't even do this in school. My daughter's in middle school, and she's like, at first, when she first started middle school, she was starting to, she was like, kind of insecure and stuff, like we all are when we're 10 years old. But then, now she's about to go to high school and she's super confident and stuff, but there's still some things that, still people she doesn't necessarily want to talk to. There's people that might come up to her and say things, and she just gives them like the Kanye shrug and the side eye, because she knows that's not the way that you come at people. So it doesn't matter if you're 10 years old, if you're, trying to get a date, if you're trying to get a job, what you're trying to do, and you relate to people, you have to not be creepy.
Yeah. I agree, 100% agree with you. One of my things that I'll do, and that I encourage other people to do, is ask yourself, in terms of your online behaviors, say this: when in doubt, play it out. So try to take the same scenario that you're about to do online and play it out in a grocery store, play it out in somewhere in public. You just bumped into someone, and if the scenario is like awkward, like, would you just shove your business card in someone's face that you just like met in the line in the grocery store? No, you wouldn't do that. That's very strange. So some of these things that you're talking about, when in doubt, play it out. Like, if it doesn't seem right in real life, you shouldn't be doing it via online communication either.
Yes. So if you haven't learned anything yet in the first 15 minutes of this interview, it's number one, when in doubt, play it out. And number two, don't be creepy. Okay. So,
don't be creepy. Yeah.
So I'm going to make that a hashtag. Don't be creepy. So
don't be creepy. I like it.
Moving on, in this work that you do, what are some relating exercises that are important that we can practice on a regular basis to try to, foster more connection and be real and relate well?
So one of my favorite things that I advocate for is, before it gets weird, conversations. We sense things. I mean, we can say that this is a female thing and that, we're more intuitive, but, men sense things too. We just need to, I have a talky friend in the room. We just have to get better at slowing down. That's Mr. Deeds, by the way. He likes to talk about communication as well. All right. But,
he was feeling that.
Yeah, he was feeling that. He's like, oh, you tell him, Mom. You tell him. Anyhow, we do feel things. Our whole body communicates, and is receiving communication, and it's giving communication, okay? And if we need to slow down to understand, okay, is this right for me? Is this feeling good? Am I uncomfortable? What more needs to happen here? And the more that we slow down and pay attention to that, the more that we can say things before we're in a very triggered situation. Because you and I both know, when you're in something that's like you're triggered, or the other person is triggered, and you're just arguing and yelling at each other. That doesn't end well. Like we got to get into communication habits before things get to that level. So those are before it gets weird conversations. First of all, invite somebody to like talk. We need to do that as well. People are busy. We need to stop and go, hey, do you have time for a coffee? Can we go to happy hour? Invite them to have an experience that's one-on-one and in person. And then share something like, hey, I noticed, or, is it okay for me to tell you about the experience I was having when we went to that event? Can I share something with you? When we say things like that, people are more susceptible to listening, number one. And if we can tell why things made us feel a certain way, people will accept that more too. And that why is usually something that has nothing to do with the person that's sitting in front of you. So it's maybe something like, the example that I use a lot is I'll say to somebody, it's like you can get really triggered by someone being late all the time because it feels like they're disrespecting you and your time's important, and you want to yell at them like you're a jerk for being late all the time. But if you step back and ask yourself, well, why does that bother me? Why does someone being late bother me? You'll find, and in my case, like the issue goes all the way back to me as a little girl in dance class. When my mom would pick me late up all the time, the teacher would be upset. I'd be totally embarrassed. All the other kids would make fun of me, like, your mom doesn't care as much about you as my mom does, And I carry this like, well, that's unloving behavior to be late, right? Now, if I tell somebody that, instead of yelling at them for being late, them as a human being is going to go, oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? I didn't know. I'm going to do better. I'm going to try better. Hey, maybe you should tell me to show up 30 minutes before, something's really happening. So, I'm always on time. Those kinds of things before it gets weird conversations are key before we're triggered. I'd also say if you want to be better in conversation and have things to talk about and have that be more comfortable, understand some things about yourself, like know what makes you happy. Have a gratitude practice and be able to like share things that you're grateful for with somebody. If you're uplifting and positive, people want to talk to you. So be in touch with that at all times. That's why they say, there is some science and health reasons behind saying something you're grateful for and doing that every day, day after day. It's like you're more in touch with happiness and you're more of a person that someone wants to talk to.
We'd love to hear your comments on this episode. Comment on social media using the handle @DereeAllen or email us at kickingit@DereeAllen.com. And by the way, Kicking It has no G.
The last thing, I think one of the most important things, especially right now, is ask more questions. We live in a world right now that everybody's telling us how to feel and telling us what's going on, trying to change our mind. And like, we need to ask more questions in general. Let someone feel that you're interested in them and, go into situations with a couple questions that you have in mind that you're going to ask people. And for sure, one of them shouldn't be, what do you do? Because if they don't like what they do, or if you're not interested in what they do, that's going to end the conversation very quickly. But if you can say, hey, what makes you wake up every day? What are you excited about? What are you passionate about? Or why do you do that? That's maybe the next one to ask, get that why question in there. You're going to be in a good conversation flow pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really, really good point about not asking them, what do you do? It's kind of like the, how's your day? It's kind of that like vanilla question that really isn't saying anything, but it's just like we're used to saying it like, how are you? And then you just keep going and you don't even like really look at the person. If you looked at them, you'd know they're like looking horrible, like they need a friend, but you just like, hey, how you doing? And you just, keep going. And it's one of those things that we do, unfortunately, we fall into that trap. And so that's a really good tip. I mean, it's all good, but that one really hit me in the head because that's a basic thing that people say all the time. Like, what do you do? Because they're just trying to like figure out like where to place you, try to put you in a category so that they can figure out if they can talk to you or if they should talk to you. And, it's just a phrase you like to, use. It's fast food relating instead of relating.
Yeah. And, and to your point, like when we as humans are put or feel that we've been put in a category, it's cutting into our hardwire for connection. Like we can't, if you're now in a different category than me, like our wires are they're not going to be communicating as well. So we don't want to ask questions that like divide us. We want to like stay at a place where it's like, okay, I can relate to that. I can relate. Debating is not relating. Relating is real, like, okay, ask me a question. You ask, back and forth questioning and sharing.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are a couple of things that you advocate as far as really experiencing more feel-good relating. And I know you already talked about inviting someone to like have coffee or spend some time with them, because it's just amazing. We're recording this here in May of 2017, and the year is just flying by. You can live even in the same city as somebody for years and not really see them but a couple of times. And because you're living your life, they're living their life. You got work, kids, school, all these different things. So what are some other ways that we can be more intentional about experiencing feel good relating?
I love that you just used the word intentional, because I'm going to share three things, and one of them is focus on intentional experiences. So stating to somebody, I want to have this experience with you. Like, so telling your cousin or, your sibling, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, and I just need to have like some lighthearted fun. Can we go bowling? Can we go to an arcade? Like, stating a very intentional experience that you want to have with someone, and actually asking them too, like, well, is there anything that you want to do with me? We need more of that. Yeah, oh yes, I want to go on a hike, or hey, let's cook dinner together. Intentional experiences. I live in a high rise in downtown Los Angeles, and some of my neighbors and I have gotten together and we are doing Sunday dinners. We rotate Sunday dinners. It has been the most meaningful experience that I've added to my life in 2018. Like the way that we slow down together and share a meal together and just talk about like what's going on in each other's life. It's been so cool. I knew these people and we'd have like fun, interactions in elevators and stuff, but I didn't really know them until we slowed down and decided to have an intentional experience together. And now it's just heartfelt connection for these people. And it just feels so good. So that's for sure. Number one is like state an intentional experience that you want to have with somebody. Two, I'm just going to say it again, I've already said it, is be more curious. Just be as curious as you can and practice curiosity. So one of the ways that I practice curiosity is an elevator ride is a big part of my day. I'm in elevators a lot with strangers. And so I'll practice new questions. Like my favorite one right now is like, have you heard a good joke lately? Because someone's receptive to that, and they're probably not going to be if they're head down on their phone, but if they're not on their phone, if they're receptive to like, yeah, I want to connect, that instantly puts them in a space where they're smiling from within because they're trying to remember a joke that made them giggle or laugh. And, I've heard some good jokes because of this, or just even if they didn't have one, they like appreciated that it was something different than have a nice day. It was more of a connection. So look for opportunities to practice curiosity. You can do it in a line at a grocery store, you're at a department store, find like ways to just practice questions. Because like I said, even if that's a little awkward, especially with strangers, you're not going to see them again, but you might feel uplifted. There's the chance of you feeling uplifted and having a really sweet connectional moment are pretty high. And then you also learn what questions might work in other situations by practicing it this way. So practice curiosity, go into every experience with some questions, readily available that you're going to use to interact with people. And the third one is something that I feel really passionate about reclaiming. So I talk a lot about grace in my work, and I use grace as the definition of the influence of spirit working through people to strengthen them or raise them up, to inspire them. So I feel that word sort of needs to be reclaimed as a non-religious thing. And the reason why I say this is because I know everybody's experienced grace in some way. Like when you're recommended a book and you read it and you're just like getting goosebumps because it's exactly what you needed to read at the time. That's like something bigger than just that person telling you to read that book. I do believe that that's, accessing some spiritual energy. And I believe in God. I don't think it's required to do that because I know people that don't and they've felt that. So I want people just to believe that there's always inspirational energy available to them at all times through people. So for any of these other tips to work, like you have to really believe that you can have an inspirational moment with somebody else to, feel good about experimenting and relating. And so I think it really starts with like, hey, grace. Like, just accept that you can be inspired by people and not lean into, people hurt me. No, people can inspire you if you let them. Those are my top three.
That's great. And I just want to add one other thing about the grace. That's really good that you made that distinction. There's spiritual laws. So they're going to go into effect regardless of, who you follow or don't follow. And grace is a big one. And that's one of the things that really struck me when I came across your information, Stephanie, because it was like grace was a prominent part of that. And I said, okay, yeah, this is good because we need to not only accept the grace and feel good about it, but give ourselves that grace when we're doing these things. The beginning of this interview, we talked about anxiety when, you're looking for a text message or you're expecting a certain response or you feel a certain type of way. And maybe it might not completely be based in reality, but recognizing that and saying, I understand what this is and that, it's not all about me. They could be in the middle of a meeting. Anything could be going on. I'm going to give myself the grace to not feel stupid. Sometimes we belittle ourselves for these things that we go through with, relationships and technology and say, oh, okay, well, that was really stupid. Well, it's only stupid if you just keep doing it. If you know better, you should do better. So once you realize that you are, not doing it quite the way you should, then give yourself the grace to say, okay, well, I'm going to do better. I'm going to seek out people like Stephanie and read books and listen to podcasts and do things that are going to help me get better in this particular situation where I might still be socially awkward or a little anxious or uncertain about how to do things. And if you're in the right organization or environment or whatever, then you're going to come across other people that are filled with grace, that will give you grace and that will help teach you what you need to know and not belittle you or make you feel stupid about maybe some of your shortcomings.
Absolutely. The more we can say it's not about me and actually practice empathy, because that's what it takes. Like when it's not about me, you let the ego go and you're really more open for new levels of understanding or new information, new experiences. Let that go for sure. The other thing that I like to say is just love yourself for being a work in progress. And communication is one of these things that it's not constant. It doesn't have to be static. It can change. You can learn new things. We are capable of learning things to the day we die. So lean into that, be curious, and love yourself for going, I don't know all this, but I'm going to try to learn. I'm going to learn a new language, or I'm going to learn communication things that I'm a little uncomfortable with, but I'm going to try and see what happens. It's so weird to me that we accept that we can work out to change our bodies, right? To feel better, to have more energy. We'll work out our bodies for some goal of having some muscle and, ripped up chest and, some and having, those visible results. But it's strange to me that we don't understand yet that we also have to exercise communication and relating to have results as well. We can't expect results without trying anything differently. It's, you said, you alluded to it earlier. It's like the definition of insanity, expecting something new without doing anything new, That can't happen. That just can't happen. But I think having loving kindness around, I'm a work in progress. I'm always going to be a work in progress to the day I die. I'm always available for new information. And I love myself for that. I don't have to be defined or categorized as anything until the day I die. And then I'll let somebody else figure out what they put on my tombstone. I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't need to worry about it at that point.
For sure, we're making an impact. And before we go, I'd like you to tell our listeners about your PSE.
Sure. PSE stands for Public Shared Experience. And as I, leaned into, hey, how do we get out of the habit of all this fast food relating that's become the norm, with texting and fast communication and fast disconnect, fast upset? How do we change that habit a little bit and replace it with feel-good relating? And PSC is an experience where we practice feel-good relating. And it's really very simple. It's usually a group of strangers. And what we start with is we're in a circle. People are sharing Well, first we clear out distractions. I take everybody's phones away. It's like the number one thing that I do. Like, nope, those are going away. And they're going to be in another room, and you're going to have anxiety for about a second, then you're going to feel better about it. So the phones go away. We do some breathing exercises. We clear out any distractions that might be pulling someone, in their mind about thinking about somebody else or something else, to get all that cleared out. Then we talk, we go in circles of sharing what we're grateful for. We just keep going around the room, what we're grateful for. And then people start complimenting each other. So we do circles of that, like where one person is turning to a total stranger and they don't know too much about them at this point, but just giving them compliments. Like, hey, I really like how you put that outfit together. That looks great on you, And as the room gets warm and things are being shared and there's more information in the room, I ask everybody to go deeper with that. And so the next round of compliments is I send, and then they just go with whatever's there, which is me saying, hey, we're pulling in some grace right now. There's something that you might need to hear right now that this person is going to be a facilitator for that. And it's so crazy, but we all become psychics in this moment, and people really flip out for a few moments because they're like, how did that happen? Because the things that are being said are so spot on that it really does take you, it surprises the first few minutes. And my point is, look, this is because we're hardwired for connection. We are getting information from each other, even if we're not communicating, because our body's communicating, our energy's communicating. And this stuff is always available. And nobody just turned into a psychic. They're just experiencing connection as we should experience it. And so that's what we do. I'm hoping to take that on tour and do that in larger groups of people. But it's such a it's a very simple, very demystifying, experience. Very simple, but it should be simple because we already have this wiring for connection. We're just not using it. So I'm just getting people to use it again. And it's really a joy for me to be able to do it. It really is something that just like lifts me up to be able to do it and see people really lifted and walk out feeling so good. And, the next step is like, okay, now how can you facilitate that more? How can you stay in practice and exercise these relating muscles that are there now? Now what are you going to do with them? So turning people onto resources or giving them opportunities to practice that in their real life is, the next step.
Stephanie, how can people reach you using the guidelines that we've already given about social media? How can they reach you online or attend one of your PSCs?
Sure. So everything that I'm doing is on my website. It's stephaniemichele.com. Stephanie is spelled the traditional way with a PH, and Michele is with one L. So stephaniemichele.com. There I list all the PSCs that I'm currently doing in Los Angeles, but I do hope to be doing those in other locations, perhaps by next year, a goal. I also do a radio show for LA Talk Radio on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And in terms of reaching out to me, you can reach out to me through my site. I do answer all my emails. I do answer social media posts if you're talking to me too. So I don't post a lot. I'm not into over posting, but I will correspond with you if you send me something that's not self-promotion, if that makes sense. So I'm, because I get those too. I've had some, it's always amazing to me. Like I talk about vulnerability a lot and I try to be an example of that. So I'll really expose my heart or like something that I'm working with at the time, and it's raw, and it's uncomfortable, but I'll do it because I want to show you, like in the moment, I'm uncomfortable for a moment, but I just let it go and it's okay. And if I can do it, you can do it. So I share stuff. And recently I shared something that was like the hardest thing that I've ever shared. And I had this young woman post like, oh, come check out my music at da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, no, that's not what we do. We don't do that, And I did, with loving kindness, tell her how that was not right. And she actually took the post down. So I was happy about that. But yeah, expect me to to correct you with loving kindness if it feels like something that shouldn't, be happening in terms of relating. And and in terms of where I am, like I'll be nice, but I will correct you. I'm not doing it to correct you because I want to be right. I'm doing it to correct you because I know that if people develop these habits that are going towards feel good relating, they're going to feel better. So, and as you said earlier, if you don't know better, you don't do better. So I feel like I can help with that. So I'm on Twitter at Love More Now. and Instagram at Relate with Steph.
I think that it's good for you to correct people because that's another way of giving grace, because you're doing it in a loving way. You're not screaming at them like a lot of people are screaming. Either they're just angry or they just want to be heard. But you also have to be willing to listen. And so you have to be able to discern when you're being corrected in a way that is really going to help you and that's constructive, or versus a way that's like, oh no, you're wrong, I did that and it doesn't work. Like, what's your attitude about? Just be able to discern that and give that back to people. Treat people how you want to be treated. It's real basic.
Yeah, I really watch, and I understand nobody wants unsolicited advice, and I don't really want to be a giver of that. I don't want to be a giver of that, period. But what I've also learned is if I'm going to be a facilitator for your feel-good experience, my experience matters too. So I'm somewhere in between, like, I don't want to give you unsolicited advice, but if I'm not feeling good about something, I'm for sure going to communicate my standards and let you know why that didn't work for me. And if you take it as advice or you take, however you take it, I can't control that anyways. So I try to communicate more about, hey, this is my standard, or this is why that didn't work for me.
Oh, wow. This has been a really great interview, Stephanie. It's actually longer than a lot that I have, but it was good. Like, it didn't feel like it. I think we're sharing a lot of really important information, things that you can think about and take with you. And if you want to revisit some of these great points that Stephanie had in this episode, you can go to my website, which is DoreeAllen.com, and click on podcasts, and Stephanie Michelle's interview will have all of her links and the key points of this episode. So thank you so much for being here, Stephanie. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. I'm really glad to talk with you too.
And I've been to LA a couple of times. I went for my birthday last year, and I just was by myself doing my own thing. Wasn't worried about being by myself. Just had fun. Took Ubers everywhere. Ate lots of fried chicken. I just had a great time. And so, whenever I get back there, I don't know when it's going to be, but I would love to pop in and check out one of these public shared experiences, the PSEs. So I would love that. If you're in that area, if you're on the West Coast, or if you're going there for any reason, going to Disney, going to a show, whatever, look her up and see if you can get with the PSEs, and just give yourself some more grace and pay attention to how you're relating to other people. Don't try to take shortcuts to everything. All right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a great way to end it.
If you like this show, I'd love to have your support. Visit patreon.com/kicking it with Doree, without the G, to learn more.